Welcome to step number 2, social integration. The workplace is a fairly bustling social hub. Water cooler conversations, sometimes bowling leagues, golfing leagues, tennis leagues. You got all sorts of different things that can be going on. Just colliding with human beings during the course of a day, any day, 3 days a week, even in Zoom. It's a big deal because you're constantly hitting a social interaction, and we are hardwired to connect. This step addresses the issue that when we stop working, that structure, the socializing that we take for granted is removed and it needs to be replaced. We need to find a way to collide with the outside world. So, in your workbook, we're going to answer a few questions, roughly around page 22, give or take. But in the workbook, we're going to answer questions. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is to listen to the podcast. You'll find a link in the box below. That podcast covers social integration in a much more in depth approach that will get you set up to be able to answer the questions in the book. As I mentioned, we are hardwired to connect. When we don't connect, it hurts. And when it hurts, we will find a way, usually malfunctioning or dysfunctional, to medicate that pain, to stop it. Some people get grouchy. Some people get angry. Some people isolate. Others go on shopping binges, social binges, seek to get the 3 A's, the affirmation, affection, and approval. Other people guilt leverage their loved ones, which pushes them all the way. Most of the stuff I just said doesn't work. It doesn't bring satisfaction. It's a very temporary hit of a medicative drug that we produce on the inside, like it's an drug, but it's opioid related, so it's addictive, and it's difficult to stop if we don't replace it with something. So what I'm asking you to do in your workbook, after you've listened to the podcast, answer the two questions outside of work. Can you do something today because you get out of bed that will make the world inherently better in the smallest way? Can you be kind to somebody at the store? Can you call up a loved one and connect with them, whatever it might be? And then answer the question, what's one thing that you can accomplish tomorrow that will make it better? So be mindful of what you're trying to do. Just you getting out of bed needs to make the world a better place every day because you bring that energy. The second question is, how do you do it? In other words, what's one thing you can do? What if you did that 7 days a week? What if every day you had a purpose for getting up? It might be something small at the beginning, but with time, you start realizing that you can start acting out on your passions and your hobbies. You can be connecting with the people who have similar passions and like minded values. In the podcast, I go into a number of things that one can do, solutions, if you will, such as joining clubs and social activities, communities, religious outlets. There's so many things one can do that aligns themselves with other people who are like-minded. And there's two ways to do it, really. There's the online approach, which has no geographical boundaries, but truly to collide face to face, if you will, and maybe touching someone, shaking a hand, giving them a hug, which is kind of a big deal to a human. You need to have personal connections. How can you do that? What are you doing now? If you're already retired, then you've already faced this challenge. Either you're doing really well, or perhaps there's some improvement you can do. If you're planning on retiring, now's a good time to start structuring that, getting some ideas written down and talking about that with your loved ones. How can you be actively engaged? In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about restructuring daily activities. So we take the social integration and we're going to get a little bit more granular. So I look forward to seeing you in that video. Thanks so much for listening.